Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. We have a great topic to discuss. We're going to be discussing burnout, one that will be a very full conversation, and I'm looking forward to that. We have Kira on here that's going to lead the discussion, and we've got Deb as well that's going to join her. And Mike is going to be there to address any chats that you guys have, comments, questions, feedback. Feel free to put it in the chat. We'll be able to respond to you. So if you're here, thank you so very much. If you're looking at this recorded, thank you for taking the time to kind of go back. One thing I want to start with is what you all have to say matters. We are trying to engage and start conversations, and maybe it's relevant to you, maybe it's not, but any feedback that you have, what you have to say matters, even if it's constructive, supportive, whatever the case may be. If you don't feel comfortable putting it in the chat, please send us an email, because these are the conversations that we're wanting to start. So please take the time to engage with us and each other in this community, because that's the purpose of this space for you all. We're very excited to roll into the topic today. There's a lot to be said, and not all of it we're going to be able to address in this short period of time that we have together. So again, if you're interested in engaging in more conversation, join one of our online groups to continue the conversation. Maybe take some notes of things that you've heard that you want to respond to, and join us. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to pass the floor over to Kira and Deb and get the conversation started.
Well, Elizabeth, we talked just briefly this morning about how bad burnout can be, especially when you're in a job or you're in an institution where you feel like you're trapped and you don't have a lot of choices. And I just want to acknowledge, a lot of times nurses, you're in a position, you're working hard, you're getting burned out, and you don't see a way out. And that's very valid, especially in West Virginia, where there's a lot of small towns and small hospitals where you don't have a choice to just pick up and leave or go to another hospital. So I think we have to acknowledge the situations that we're in can cause burnout and not make light of it. But I think today we want to look at, if you feel that, and finding out exactly how you're burnt out and what are the things you can do about it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Deb. So that's the first thing that I wanted to address too, is that, we're not here to try to put a smiley face on a bad situation. And so, we definitely understand that the most important thing as part of job, satisfaction and of not being burnt out, right, is like being paid well, being treated with respect, and being in a place that's not understaffed, so that you're not being asked to do everything. Those are huge issues, we know, in nursing, and that's the main reason, that we're here to help with dealing with that. You can, like, dealing with what's under your control. Those things, hopefully, as we all gather here to talk about it, we can become a voice that is heard to create change. And I'm sure that's, being in the work. Actually, Deb, you were mentioning something about even new grants coming along, right, to help with nurses finding a good place for them.
Right. I did, just last week I saw the state of West Virginia once again has received a large grant to help with retention of nurses. There's a couple of things that are a part of that grant. Part of it is trying to help nurses that are already working as nurses, finding innovative ways for them to go back and get further education, which would allow you to earn more money, number one, and allow you maybe to change your position. Part of the grant also is to give more opportunities to nurse educators. I know a lot of you may have tried to go back to school and found that you can't get in because the wait lists are so long. I understand sometimes it's harder to get into nursing school than medical school these days. So
Wow.
part of the grant is to provide more nursing professors so you'll have opportunities. I don't know how it'll affect you locally in your town, but you might want to look at it, and I'll post the article about the grant on our website so you can see which are the things for you. Another part is to encourage employers to, and this is key, raise nursing wages. Raising our wages is probably one of the key things we need to lower stress, but I
Yeah.
can't say specifically how that's going to affect exactly where you're working. But I'll put that article up so that you'll be able to see it on our website.
Wonderful.
Great. Thank you, Deb.
Great.
So in the meantime, while we're, obviously acknowledging all of that, there are some things that you can do to recognize burnout and to help combat burnout. First of all, I wanted to talk about, though, so that you don't think we're talking about the same thing with compassion fatigue, because it sounds a lot alike. Compassion fatigue and burnout are different things. So compassion fatigue is the mental and physical exhaustion that you feel just from caring for people, being the caregiver. Burnout is mental and physical and emotional exhaustion from a stressful work environment. So this affects anybody, but clearly both of these affect nurses because
Yeah.
stressful work environment and caring for people all day long. So of course, Harvard Medical Review has listed you as one of the top uh, careers that's going to be experiencing burnout, and it has become an actual medical diagnosis. Burnout, again, is a huge topic, so we can't cover everything today, of course, but we can talk about how to recognize it. So with burnout, you're going to be feeling aches, pains, need for rest, cloudy thinking, confusion, frustration, reduced performance at work, where you just kind of like check out, like, if you know what, if I'm not being appreciated here and this is just impossible, then I'm not going to do the same work level that I normally do because they don't deserve it at this point, right? And the problem with that is that leads to a loss of identity, and that just can also lead to depression, because now you are seeing yourself as somebody who doesn't perform at the normal level that you usually do. And so now you're just like, what's the point? Why am I even here? And now you're disappointed in yourself instead of feeling proud of yourself for doing your best work. So this is kind of the feeling of burnout and what to look for. Now we can talk about, what to do about it. Again, the number one thing I totally believe is be in an environment where you're respected, where you're paid well, and where you have a great team that supports each other, and you don't feel like everything is on you and that you just have to do what you're being told, and you have no other choices. So that's number one. And you know what? If you don't feel like that, maybe it's time to look for another position. You could change specialties, which Deb can talk to us more about, because I know you've done it a few times, you said.
Yes. Well, it is, and again, I want to say, I know it's those are great ideas, Kira, and I believe in them too. I probably in my nursing career about every 5 or 6 years, not so much burnout. I just felt like I'm not doing as well. I'm not as interested. I'm not as passionate. So I was able to laterally shift to a different, from orthopedic nursing to medical nursing to outpatient nursing. So if you can do those things, that's a great, great big step. I do think we're a little restrained because I know some of you work in small towns, and you might see a job that you want, but that nurse is never going to retire. So you feel a little trapped, which then kind of escalates your burnout. But it's always good to look at the opportunities that are around you. If you really can't change, that's one thing. But if you haven't taken the time to just say, what can I do better? What can I do differently? Just taking that little bit of time to self assess and say, is there a way I can still be a nurse, still be passionate, but not have to show up at this same nursing station every day that I can tell I'm getting burnt out at? So.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. And then after that, balance your life is another key thing. Make sure that you are having a good amount of alone time, work time, family time, and friend time. That just helps you keep hold of your identity. Who I am isn't all tied to my job anyway, right? Because I have all of this other stuff going on in my life that I really love. And definitely places to vent too, friend time, talk about what's going on with somebody that cares, or talk about it here. Definitely talking about it helps just get it out of your head, so you're not constantly rehearsing those thoughts and building resentment about where you are.
And
Okay.
sometimes that's tough for nurses because we often think, I'm super nurse. I don't have these problems. I
Yeah.
can handle it all. So, it's okay. I've got kids. I've got a husband. I'm helping with Girl Scouts, and I'm a nurse. And people
Yeah.
expect nurses to be the superwomen of society. So I
Yeah.
think we just have to acknowledge we're not. We're not. Give yourself some slack and say, what can I do as you said, balance some of these responsibilities or get out of some of these responsibilities? So.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, Mike.
Kind of as an outsider, what I'm thinking about right now is, Deb, the picture that I just had in my mind is of a person who is very engaged, has a very rich life, has a family, has a lot going on, involved with the kids' school, all that. I wonder if that person maybe is less likely to be experiencing burnout, and maybe the person is more someone who doesn't have a lot of connection
Mm-hmm.
and is just kind of like showing up to work and feeling kind of trapped in their life.
I think that's a great question, Mike. And the answer for me would be both of the above. Nurses can be overengaged and be burnt out, and then those isolated nurses, they can be burnt out too. But you bring a good point. Is it
Mm-hmm.
could be the nurse who's single, that doesn't have a social life, that doesn't have outlets, and feels like all she's doing is nursing, and it feels trapped. So
Exactly.
we should think about the whole range of types of people that will experience burnout. Thank
Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm saying balance, because that's exactly the point that I'm making is if you're in a situation where your job is your whole life, try to add more, family time, try to make more friends, try to have, good alone time. That is something that is restorative, to your soul, that makes you, feel peace and happiness. And if you are in a situation where you have all of that going on in your life, right? But it's overwhelming because you have so much of it. Balance that too, right? Tone that down. Say no to more things. Set boundaries so that you're not pulled at every single angle of your life. Make sure you have good alone time where you can reset who you are. So definitely that's so important. And then along with that comes sleep. Get good sleep, eat healthy so you have good energy, exercise so that you have good energy and you feel good about yourself, look good, feel good, have good confidence. That helps with setting boundaries, saying no to things that you don't feel comfortable doing, which we just talked about in the last one. You can watch the last podcast or pull up the article that was posted on that, or reach out to any of us to talk more about boundaries anytime also. And then another thing, Deb hit on self-compassion. And that was something that I definitely wanted to talk about too, right? Like nurses are considered heroes, right? You're called that all the time. And that's great. And we're so thankful for you. But you're not perfect, right? Nobody is. Nobody's perfect. And feeling like you have to be can definitely get you burnout too. Let yourself admit, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I can't do everything. I can't please everyone, right? And that's okay. Guess what? Nobody else is either. Not even, the nurses that look like they've got it all together. Not anybody in the entire world, right? Everybody is making mistakes too. So have some compassion for yourself, and you don't have to be so hard on yourself. Another talking point that I really wanted to hit on is do your own knitting. This comes from Michelle Obama's book, and it is very important to basically have projects that you are working on, to be able to set goals that you can accomplish, small, reachable goals that you can be working on all the time, so that you feel a sense of accomplishment and a sense of pride in yourself, no matter what else is going on at work.
You
So
know,
set your own goals.
and I was going to say, just so we're not making it too hard on nurses, it could be as simple as you love to read trashy novels, and your goal could be, I'm going to give myself that pleasure. I finished 3 novels this month and I enjoyed them. That can be a goal. That could be your own
Yeah.
knitting. Because if you haven't done that since college and now you want to do that, or you want, you want to take part in some, I actually sometimes treat myself with phone calls for friends that are out of town. I was like, I'm going to set aside an hour. I haven't talked to this friend for a long time. Once we start, it'll be an hour. Give yourself those little rewards of a telephone call with a friend you haven't seen, a book that you like that you don't have to even say what it was because you like it and nobody else has to like it. So when you say knitting, knitting can be simple things too, more than think you have to go out and create a new project or plant a garden or something.
That's true. Yeah, that's a very good point. Or like, I have a goal of going on a vacation. I'd like to go on a few vacations a year or something like that. That definitely could be the giving yourself the reward and setting a goal. But I love that you're mentioning the small things, because the more small goals that you set and accomplish, the more you build up that sense of identity and sense of trust in yourself, of like, hey, you know what? I set goals and I accomplish them. I am a capable person, right? So that you can stand up confidently when you're working in a stressful environment, set those boundaries, say no, and hold on to your identity and not get, stuck in burnout. Another thing that is important is getting back to why you started in the first place. Right? Like, why are you doing this? Even taking some time to journal about it. And also, I highly recommend journaling about, anything that's in your head in the morning, just to get it out so you're not carrying around all the thoughts of the day. But really reflecting on what is your why. Why did you get started in this? And does it still fit with your life? Right? We change, we grow, we change. It could change too, or it could reinforce to you, this is why I'm here, right? Let me not focus so much on all the stuff that's going on that's frustrating me, and get back to caring for the patients, for this reason. Deb, I'm curious, what is your why? Why did you get started in nursing?
Which, to be honest with you, I never wanted to be a nurse because my little sister wanted to be a nurse and I never thought I would. So I started out with a different career and changed to nursing once I realized there was something missing in my life and I had an opportunity to go back to school. But the reason I think I stayed in nursing for so long is there were still those patients that gave you that reward is of, I did something good for somebody today. I still can do something good. And it's not the big things. It's not doing CPR on somebody or saving a life. It's the little things you do. And a patient will say to you, thank you for some small things. So I still like those little thank yous, for even could be as simple as helping somebody out of bed. So I guess that's what, and again, as I said, after 5 or 6 years, those same type of patients saying thank you, I would find I'm getting a little burnt out. I want to change my perspective and change a little bit to a different type of nursing. So
I love that.
The little thank yous, I think, yeah.
Yeah, the little thank yous, and feeling like the biggest one that you hit on, I think, feeling like you're helping people.
Yes.
Like each day, right? I think that's the number one thing that nurses go into nursing for, right? I think if you're not there to genuinely help people, you're in the wrong field, right? Because everybody needs your help. So
I have a.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I never know the right place to interrupt you.
Oh, you can anytime. I'm sorry. Anytime.
Speaking of perspective, and I feel like I'm always the one to bring up the whole we have live groups thing. You
Hmm.
know, is the benefit of hearing other people is that it can help reframe. As an example, like if I'm in my head about and I'm down on my own life, I'm hearing that, oh, someone always has it worse than me, and it brings gratitude to what I have. Like I
Yeah.
remember I used to go see my dad who was in a convalescent home, and whatever was going on, when I left there, I always felt like, oh, you know, I'll keep my problems, you
Right,
know.
right.
Yeah. Thankful to have the problems I have because it could
Yeah.
be.
So,
Yes,
but by
yes.
showing up to hear other people, but showing up to a live group and maybe with other nurses like we have, um, it you can hear other people and get perspective on your own situation.
Yeah. That's such a good point. And just gratitude in general, for sure, helps you keep things in perspective. Definitely.
If I can interject, sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
We very early on when we just started the Care for Nurses, we did a poster about burnout, and I wanted to kind of hit back on some of the signs and symptoms. I know you started with a few of them, but when we were doing this, we kind of came up with an exhaustive list or close to it. I'm sure there's much more. And I wanted to take a minute to just bullet point some of those signs or symptoms because it can manifest differently. And
Mhm.
I think in any of these, it's all on a spectrum, right? If you're seeing a trend where it's becoming unbalanced or the frequency where something is happening, I think that's important because, again, burnout, it's a slow development. Right, it happens slowly, it progresses slowly, and then all of a sudden we look and we're like, what's wrong, what's going on?
Yeah.
So I want to take a minute real quick and share about some of those signs and symptoms. It's not just exhaustion, right? Exhaustion can be a symptom of burnout, but burnout isn't just exhaustion.
Yeah.
It can include isolation, irritability, the sense of feeling of like that you're drowning. That could be some language that you're using.
Yeah.
It can be a low mood, a lack of creativity, anxiety. Again, I think that's one of those things we all kind of have anxiety at some point, but right, where is it on the spectrum of your daily routine? Another one that I found interesting is depersonalization and almost like a detachment, uh,
Hmm.
emotional numbness. Right, you're like, well, is that compassion fatigue? And you talked about that. Well, you have to look at it as a grand scheme of things and kind of are there additional symptoms there? um, Finding difficulty concentrating, losing confidence in your skills, or the lack of interest or commitment to a role. And I know, Deb, you had mentioned that, hey, you just didn't feel as committed or energized, right? So that would be one. Being quick to anger, right? Your fuse may be getting shorter. Your absenteeism maybe is increasing. But another one that's huge is the inability to unwind after work, right? You're so keyed up that you just can't unwind if you're trying to read a book, or you can't take a breath if you're trying to meditate, right? So that inability to unwind after work as well could be a telltale sign. Increased tendency to make mistakes at work, reduced performance. So these are all just some thing, loss of purpose and trouble sleeping. These are all just some things that can occur there. Um, when when you're looking at burnout in general as well, and I know, Kira, you kind of touched on this some, recognizing it as the first step and then finding out how to repair it. And,
Hmm.
and I'm going to start this by saying I'm not a doctor, so don't take any advice here as medical advice. But when you're looking at the repair, you guys know as nurses probably better than I do, but a journey that I've been under is really learning about how stress and anxiety affect your endocrine system. And when that happens, when you have chronic stress or chronic anxiety and your endocrine system starts to get of whack, it starts affecting your circadian rhythm, and it starts affecting your ability to sleep, and maybe your ability to digest your nutrition properly. So one of the things that I think for me was, when you're looking at repairing, it's also talking to your support system, your doctors, your physicians, people who can help you maybe identify a more underlying issue, because this is a gradual progression. I think that sometimes those systems that can become taxed and become a health problem on top of that.
Yeah,
So really getting and talking to your provider and saying, hey, can we run some tests? What does my blood work look like? Because again, you're used to caring for other people. Make sure you're doing that for yourself as well. Make sure you're going to your checkups. Make sure that you're having those conversations with your doctors, because it can get to a point where it is affecting how it doesn't matter how much you try to sleep, you're not sleeping. Well, it could legitimately be because your stress and anxiety has affected your endocrine system and all the hormones that are going on, right?
Right.
Age can play into that as well. So
Yeah.
realize that it may have started out as a slow progression, but then it's become a bigger issue and a challenge. So I did want to just touch on that before we ran out of time.
Yeah.
And I speak somewhat personally to that, because I've found myself in that journey, and I've been able to do some awesome things with my healthcare providers to be able to get some energy back and focus and clarity, and to be able to sleep and those kind of things. So I don't want to discount to truly make sure you're having conversations with your healthcare providers as well.
Yeah, I love that. Definitely. There's so many people who can help.
Those are great points, Elizabeth. And these days, especially, it's tough sometimes getting in to see a doctor, but I'd encourage everybody to even use the telehealth options that most everybody has available, at least to start the conversation of, do I need to have any further workup done? Where am I? Either through your insurance company, your actual doctor. There's telehealth available even to the most rural parts of West Virginia, where you can have somebody, if not to counsel you psychologically, but also for your physical needs. Correct. So I encourage everybody to take advantage of that too.
Yeah, and that also made me think of the central nervous system too, because when we are running on stress over, stress on stress on stress, we get to living in like kind of survival mode, fight or flight. And that definitely takes a toll on our body too, in all of the same ways that you were talking about. And there are ways, to shut that down. And I've gone through that personal journey myself too, having to learn like, wow, this has really affected the way that I think, the way that I've made decisions. And I need to learn to shut down survival mode so that I can stop and, have that gratitude and think, mindfully about just, okay, right now, everything is okay. Right now, I am safe.
Mm-hmm.
Like our central nervous systems are kind of geared to protect us from, things chasing us, and putting us in fight or flight. Like I have to fight for my life here. And it gets us running on such a high stress, environment, like a high stress mode. And if we can just take time to do breathing exercises, meditations, to reset our body, to tell it, okay, calm down. And then we can look at our problems and see, what, there are all these stressors out there, but none of them are life and death, right? And if I take some time to calm down, I can maybe fix some of these, right? I can solve some of these problems. Like I can go to management, and talk to them about the problems that I'm having, with coworkers or, with them, with the system, with whatever it is. Or, I can address whatever problems I'm having in the rest of my life with friends, with family, all that, and start to solve the problems instead of just always running for them or fighting against them.
Sure.
Right. And letting those attitudes affect your patient care, that you're just too burnt out. You just have so much else going on. You have nothing left to give a patient. You don't want to, you don't feel like it, and you end up saying, screw it, I'm not doing this. You got to do the things Kira suggested to get yourself out of that rut where you have those feelings. So.
Yeah. And I think also identifying what you have control over and what you don't have control over in the moment, and kind of not dismissing things that you don't have control over, because you're still a voice that needs to be heard, but coming together as a group, whether it's a platform like this or with some coworkers at work, and really talking about some of those bigger issues and challenges as a group where you feel supported, and then really focusing on the day-to-day things that you do have control over. We are at our time. We're actually over our time. Again, I knew this was going to be a topic that we could legitimately talk about much more.
Yeah.
I do want to summarize by, first of all, thanking you all for being here today to talk about this topic. Please share your feedback. If there's something we missed or something that you agree with or don't agree with or anything like that, feel free to post it in the comments, post it. Send us an email if you don't want to post it. That's perfectly okay. We just want to get the conversations started. Join one of our groups so that you can talk more about it there. That would be amazing as well. And just know that this is a safe place for you to come together as a group of nurses in West Virginia, to really feel like you have a place to speak safely and confidently, and to begin, let's be that agent of change, right? Let's help with some of the things that we don't have control over individually, to maybe come collectively together and be a bigger voice. So we thank you for being here, listening to it if it's a recorded thing, and we look forward to the coming weeks. We do have some really awesome guests lined up through the end of the year. So we'll be be looking for the emails for the next video podcast so that you can know what we're talking about and what our guest speakers are going to be presenting on. If you know somebody who would love to come on here and speak, send us an email, pass on our information to them, because we are starting to get our roster filled up for this coming year. So that's exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Hi, guys.
Okay.